Yes, welcome in the second segments of the today's class. We'll talk undue influence, fraud, and misrepresentation. Now, in case of undue influence, there is influence which is unduly made. Obvious enough, you can ask a question, sir, how if one party cannot influence the other party in the process of negotiation of a contract, how there can be a contract? It's obvious. The party tries to influence each other, but that influence cannot be undue. Unduly, you cannot do that. The idea being that in a contract, if one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of the other party, and he uses that position to have the consent of the other party, then the court will think there is an undue influence. That in cases of a contract of undue influence, one of the party is in a position to dominate. That is something like that. The relationship of master and servant, the relationship of father and son, the relation of the boss and the employee. So these are the relationship where there is a possibility. Court may think, yes, there might be an undue influence because one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of the other. And it will depend upon each different circumstances of a case to decide. So in case of undue influence, unlike a coercion, there is no threat, no nothing. But for reason known or unknown, one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will. For example, suppose the Vice Chancellor, while meeting me, he finds that I am using a very good pen, a very costly fountain pen, suppose a Gucci fountain pen. And he said, Shamsuddin, I likes the pen very much. I will give you 10,000 taka for the pen or 5,000 taka for the pen. Maybe I don't want to sell the pen because the pen is a gift from one of my very close person. But can I say no to the Vice Chancellor? Or can I say, sir, I am not eager to sell it to you? By the dint of the position, he is in a position to dominate my intention. It's very difficult for me to say no. So when in a contract, one of the party is in a position to dominate the other party, it is a situation of undue influence. And the other party can go before the court and say that I couldn't say no at that time, but in fact, he influenced me unduly. So that is something that we must know. Here also, in undue influence, we must keep in mind about one thing. Under the Contract Act 1872, there is a concept relating to Pardanishin lady. Now, normally when we say Pardanishin lady, we refer to somebody, a lady who uses veil or secludes herself from the public by burqa or veil, whatever it may be. And anybody wearing a burqa, we call them Pardanishin lady, generally in a public, but that is not so in law. The law says a Pardanishin lady is somebody who don't have enough knowledge about the whole world or the outer society. He may be less educated or someone who don't really go to the public and mix with the public and have enough knowledge. So you must know that when a contract is entered into between one of the parties being a Pardanishin lady, special care must be taken. Otherwise, the court will presume the existence of an undue influence. Meaning, a gentleman is entering into a contract with a lady who is a widow, don't have enough education, seems like not have enough knowledge about the world, and he entered into a contract in English. Naturally, the court will presume there is a presumption of undue influence. Court will presume. So whenever there is a presumption, automatically the burden of proof, proving that there was no undue influence, will be shifted from the shoulder of the lady to the shoulder of the person against whom it is being accused, that he has unduly influenced me. So this is there, and that is very important. You must keep in mind. So whenever you enter into a contract with Pardanishin lady, the presumption is that there is undue influence, and you have to rebuttal that by proving before the court that no, there was no undue influence. Second one is fraud. It's a very common factor for declaring contract void. Under Section 17 of the Contract Act 1872, fraud is discussed. And about Section 17, fraud has been declared or explained as a false represent of fact made with the knowledge of its falsehood, knowing fully well that it is not true, but asking the other party to believe it to be true, because otherwise the other party will not come to a contract. So if you look to fraud under Section 17, first of all, there must be a false statement. One of the party has made a false statement, knowing fully well that it is false, but he is asking the other party to believe it to be true. And on that belief, the other party enter into a contract. So that is what a fraud takes place. So when a fraud is made, the mind of the one of the party who is making the fraud is not good. He has a bad intention in mind. He had intention to cheat. That's why we used to say cheating, fraud, cheating, and all, they are the same thing. Because one of the parties tries to defraud the other party, and it takes very occasionally here or there, say something, give something, saying that it is a 5 kathas of land, highland or something like that. In the contract it is said like that. When the other party went there to take the possession, he finds half of the land is beneath the water, so it's not a highland or something like that. Somehow you try to have gained the confidence of the other party by saying something wrong, false, intentionally, false statement made intentionally with the idea to cheat the other party, then there is a fraud. So it's fine, it's easy. But question is that if I ask a question, it's there in my handout, can silence be fraud? The presence of a silence in a contract can be considered as a fraud. The answer is simple. Generally, silence is not fraud, except under 2 conditions. If the situation of the negotiation of the contract is such that one of the party is in a position to speak out and prefers not to speak, then that is fraud. Number 1, his silence will amount to fraud. Second is that when in the negotiation process of a contract, silence is equivalent to speech. So in either 2 cases, silence may amount to fraud. Otherwise, there is no fraud. Generally, silence is not fraud. And just to discuss about it, I will give you a short example. Breeding of horse and upbearing of horse for races and for circus and all those things is a good business in Western world. And in a real case, there was a person who breeds real good horses, and in his breeding activities when going on, suddenly he finds one of the horses who is not really go by the command. So he decided to sell it. He took it to the auction house and asked the auction house that he wants to sell the horse. And the auction house sold the horse. And it has been bought by a circus party. The owner of a circus party took the horse with the idea that it will be trained by the trainer eventually, and then it will be used. Young black stallion baby horse is really good. So he bought the horse for say 1500 sterling pound or something, and then he took it and asked his trainer that go and train in next 6 months, we'll give it to the show. But then again, after say a month, the trainer came and with a bad face say, sorry sir, I cannot train the horse because of the fact he doesn't takes my training. It's difficult to say what happened. Suddenly he doesn't carry on what I say. So he called a veterinary surgeon. The vet came in, the doctor for the animals. The veterinary surgeon checked and found everything is fine. The horses, everything is fine. He laughed and said, okay, the horse is good, but then again, it's a mad horse. It is mad. So at times it doesn't carry the order. So the circus man became very angry that the other party, the auction house, must have cheated him. He should have said that it is a mad horse. So he went to the auction house and said, did you share the fact that it is a mad horse? Don't you know it? He said, I know. I knew it, that it is a mad horse. Then why didn't you tell me, he asked. And he said, why should I? It was in the auction. It was in front of you. You saw the horse. You liked the horse. You bid the horse. You bought the horse. Did you ask me a question whether otherwise the horse is fine? So unless there is a specific question about the horse, as an auction house, it's not my duty to let you know. Had there be a straight question saying, well, I am buying the horse for 1500 sterling pound, I think otherwise it is fine. Then I would have said, yes, it's a good horse, but it is a mad horse. You didn't make a specific inquiry. As a buyer, it was your duty to ask me. Because I'm not supposed to say everything about the horse, how many times he eat in a day or whatever, blah, blah. These are the things that's, unless there is a specific question. So silence is not always fraud. It may be fraud under two circumstances. When situation is such that regard being had to the situation, it was the duty of one of the party to speak out. Or when silence itself is amount to speech. Otherwise, generally, silence is not fraud. Very important thing to remember. Next come, after the fraud, what is important is that misrepresentation. As a matter of fact, fraud and misrepresentation are more or less very close. In case of a fraud, there is a guilty mind to cheat the other party. In case of a misrepresentation, there is no guilty mind. One of the party represents something which may be wrong, but that is a misrepresentation, but he knows that in that way. So he hasn't represent anything with the ill mind, with a mischievous mind. So that is the difference between misrepresentation and fraud. In case of a misrepresentation, there is no guilty mind, but that is a false statement. He made it knowing that it is true, because he also believed that to be true, and the other party believes it. So between the two parties, there is understanding, but that understanding is on misrepresentation. So in the eye of law, that's why there is no contract. And the last issue is mistake. When both the parties are under a mistake, then the contract is automatically void, because there is no understanding. What I am thinking, you are not thinking. So understanding is in a wrong concept. So these are the vitiating element that you must keep in mind. Presence of any of the factors, fraud, coercion, undue influence, manipulation, will make the contract void. Usually in the beginning it was voidable, not void, but one of the party will have to go to the court to declare the contract as void. That's why these factors are known as vitiating element of a contract, which you must keep in mind. Because despite the apparent contract, the contract may not be enforceable in a court of law. With this, we've come to the end of the second segment of our third class. Thank you.